you have anything else?
Oh, and when we have a budget workshop, I'd like to see us revisit the alcohol tax rate. After contacting other cities around us, it seems to be a lot higher.
Ours is higher?
No, ours is significantly lower.
Okay.
Why?
You gotta be able
Whitesburg,
to justify it.
You have to have somebody arrest and all that.
I'm sure the police department should.
I see what,
address
what,
that
what
information.
they do. Have a road like that, and then report.
We paid out $14,600 in payroll last month to the police department. We only brought in $1,621 in alcohol tax. I'm sure we can justify raising that if just a
No, it
half a
has to be
percent.
related to alcohol.
Yeah.
Not just your
You have to make
We can have a
DUI.
block party.
There you go, then do
There has to be.
The city's sponsored block party.
Year worth.
Go this
all the
way.
free booze. We paid
Right.
70
What
for
they
the
cost?
last.
Now you're thinking outside the box. I like, I like what
Police are other end.
It says DUI cost related.
But that's DUI. I mean, some of these other things could be related to alcohol.
You have
And they have to
to
spend time doing
We-
walkthroughs.
We put all the DUIs up before, we got more DUIs in my county. For capital.
Maybe it's at $1,500.
It's because people buying their booze and
There's a-
taking it home.
We also get for the police department's House Bill 413 money, comes in quarterly.
That's what pays your, what is that, what's that I'm trying to say?
Right now, I
Supplement on the pay, what is that?
Incentive?
Yeah. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Charles. Yeah, incentive, yeah.
It's been a long day, Charles.
Oh, goodness, yes, it has. Anything else? Okay, I do have one more little item, I'm sorry, I just now see it reading my list. At the water plant, there is a rusty old scale that has been there since Noah came over. It is metal. It's just a pile of rust sitting there, because I went up there one day with them, and I said, bring all that stuff out here, because it was sitting here and sitting there. Well, and then another one is a metal housing and screen, it's a great big old elbow thing. We can take that down, if you all will agree to scrap it, agree to
Motion to
surplus
scrap,
it,
surplus.
surplus it. We can get some money out of it, it's sitting up there just.
Motion to surplus rusty metal at what plant? Water plant.
Rusty, it's an old rusty
Metal
scale.
scale.
Old rusty metal scale.
And then the other one is a metal housing and
And metal
screen.
housing.
That is one unit, but it'll have to be separated in order
Did you
to,
second that, Charles?
Yeah.
Charles seconded.
I
Scrap it.
guess.
cause it's heavy metal. Heavy metal.
Well, you know, the old winch overhead, they don't use it anymore. That's one ton.
What is it now? That water?
It's an old electric winch that used to roll all
Well,
the way
let's
out.
put it this
pick up
way,
the chemicals.
when I was up there wandering around the water plant outside, I stumbled into them, so.
Ask Chris about that winch.
And still in scraping?
No, they're locked
I
up.
remember I found that in the come off, so they.
Yes.
Not since we've been back.
Okay, if council comments are through, then we'll have, Wayne, do you have any kind of report or?
I have one report right here.
I've got your report, yeah, I've got.
That's how I knew how many DUIs you had.
Everybody's already got the
So
reports.
just saying.
Do we have anybody from the public that would like to make
I've got a
anything?
quick question.
Uh-huh.
With the blighted buildings committee, planning, design, code enforcement board, it seems like there's problems keeping people on there staying.
There is.
Is there any way to revert the powers from those boards and committees back to the council where they could just deal with it directly?
I don't know, do you, John?
I mean, I'd hate to comment officially. Yeah, I think the answer is yes. Your ordinances right now require that it go through the,
I think that's what keeps us in the Main Street program.
Yeah, no.
So we definitely need to look at it though, if that's what it takes, if you look at, we could do it, and I'm speaking hypothetically, that would eliminate a lot of headaches.
That's all the time.
So we can move along and get things
but I
done.
don't think that that's a question that you can answer definitively right now. I know that it isn't an ordinance that requires that to go through that board right now before it comes to the council. However, could that be done away with? Theoretically, yes, but what are the ramifications?
That's what we
We
need
have
to look
100-page
into,
ordinance on
to
it.
make sure we don't lose out on something that,
But that's when we started having all that, when we done that.
Robert should find us
planning
some board members.
Did we advertise for that or anything?
Nobody wants to do that.
Nobody wants to, I've asked people.
Because you have to tell people, hey, it's gotta be fixed.
See,
Or else.
my goal is to improve the city, to make it good to live in for everybody.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes you have to do a few little things that everybody's not gonna be happy about.
I think in theory, it could save the city a lot of money too, because you can assess fines that way immediately without having to go through litigation. But,
We need to get
Board operated.
look at it again and streets look good, not just this downtown.
Once by city of your business and you come in here and you ride and you see all that stuff, would you put your business right
Cautious
beside
neighborhood
it? Or would you,
Careful what
would
you
you
say.
want to?
It almost seems
Come down.
a little counterproductive. I mean, if those are requirements to be part of the Main Street program, but yet you can't force anything along Main Street to really be cleaned up without going through these boards that nobody sits on and nothing gets done.
Right,
exactly right.
where it's stalemate, we've been that way for years, that we need to.
It's kind of, there's no balance there. Would be
But
fair.
they, can I serve on that board? She don't live in the city though.
Do I have to live in the
Can we
city?
live in
No,
the city?
Move you up here.
Do I have to?
I make a motion
Well,
to
there you
hand
go.
this Faye's house.
No.
Thought it had to be
I'm fine living in the
qualifications.
county.
Or said you didn't think you had to be on it.
No, not on
You don't
those
have to
boards,
live
you
in the
don't have
city.
to live in the city, because we had a couple of that size.
We'll keep you in mind, they will be calling us.
People look it up.
You should, I'm gonna tell
One, three
you.
boards.
That's it.
Failed stroke.
He's probably on the council, like tax dollars.
Well, you all need to think about the board, so and see if you can get some volunteers. Do y'all
Look
have,
up and make sure.
anybody else from the public? We
Motion
appreciate
to
you.
adjourn.
A little early to cut this meeting off. I have nothing else to do tonight, so I say we keep going. I mean, I don't see why we can't, What I would suggest, I think we talked about rates a little bit, and I think what the council asked was seeing where the money goes. I think in order to even get a picture of what your rates should be for water and wastewater is you need to understand what you spend on water, what you spend on wastewater, and what you bring in for each one. And just to look at those without even hiring anybody or bringing anybody in to look at your rates, you can get a good picture of where you
That's
stand
what we were talking about.
without anybody. And I think once you do that, then you can look at it and you say, okay, we know we're in the hole, we're not making enough to cover our business now. But then you have to look at depreciation, I think much like your accountant talked about. You gotta start adding those things back in so you can pay for them. But rural water does that as well. Rural water has a person who comes around and looks at your rates as well. So I'm not here plugging rural water, I'm just saying that as far as my workings across the state, they're the cheapest one out there doing it. And sometimes they do some of those things for free, so you can look at it. I can also forward you guys information on how to do rate studies yourself, so if you had council members who were
Would you do
interested.
that? I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I think we can figure this out.
I think you
Let's
can.
just do it all studies,
I
come
mean,
together.
And I think what the biggest thing is you need to justify what your rate will be, and really look at it so that you're not taking money from the water fund to the wastewater fund. I mean, I'm not saying you guys do that now. Pretty much everybody does though. So, you need to look at them individually and say, can wastewater sustain itself and can water sustain itself? And I think you have to do that up. But I'll be glad, Mayor, to forward it on to Robin and you
I would
yourself.
appreciate it if you would.
And I'll be,
Work that out.
I'll be more willing to come back again to next city council meeting as long as there's a little more fighting, a little more bickering. I do appreciate that when I get out. My wife doesn't give me enough of it at home, so I like to get it other places.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?